The following is an interview with Doug Page, who's a director of outbound product management for the strategic portfolio management SPM product at ServiceNow. It's a really fun interview. Doug is a great guy, and I hope you enjoy this. Doug, thank you very much for joining me this morning. I'll do a very brief introduction of you to the audience. You're Director of Outbound Product Management for Strategic Portfolio Management at ServiceNow. You have very graciously given me some time today on Thanksgiving Day holiday there for you. I wonder if we could just start with you giving us just a little bit of an intro about you and how you got into the world of ServiceNow.
Yeah, so I'll try and make it short and not bore people, but I will go back a little bit further. So my first job out of university was with Air Canada. I love the aviation industry. I worked in like product management, revenue management, scheduling for the airline for 10 years. And then Air Canada went through the bankruptcy protection. All of the non-unionized employees, including myself, we kind of took a little bit of a pay cut. I had just finished my MBA at that time, and I was like, "Oh, this is tough to take." One thing that I did do that was interesting was while I was there, as they were going through bankruptcy protection, GE suggested we do Six Sigma. So they took one person from each department and sent us. I'm based in Canada. They sent us to the US to learn Six Sigma from GE, which was fascinating learning for me. And when I decided not to stay there, it was a really nice transition to get into the software world, because people are still today, we're trying to transform and do automation and find better ways to do things. So I found my way to a very small software company in Montreal, where I'm based. That wasn't a great place to work, but interestingly, they got bought by IBM. And so I ended up going from a company of less than 100 people to a company of 365,000 people. And then from there, that was specifically all with project management and project portfolio management. And then I made my way to what was CA that got bought by Broadcom. It just happened as coincidence. I left there to come to ServiceNow a week before the Broadcom acquisition of CA was announced. And someone that I'd worked with that I had respected a lot decided they were going to come to ServiceNow. And I thought, well, if they're coming, that's probably a pretty good idea. And it was a great idea. That was over 6.5 years ago. I was always in this project portfolio management space, now strategic portfolio management. At the time, ServiceNow called the space ITBM, IT business management. And we made the decision to change that to SPM a few years ago, just to better represent how customers were using the product across the enterprise.
That's one of the questions I had written down here, was just to ask for that, because I know that in the past, ITBM is a familiar term within the ServiceNow community. So SPM is the natural evolution of ITBM with new features enhanced into it, I'm supposing. So what's it like then, the team that you have working on SPM?
Yeah. So one thing that's maybe good for your audience to know is we have a business unit called SPM. There's actually 3 products that are part of that business unit. There is SPM itself, so we don't have a good imagination there. The SPM product's part of the SPM business unit, but we also have a product that was called Application Portfolio Management. Until September, we'll remove that product into the enterprise architecture space, which is actually very interesting as part of like our overall offering. And then this year, we also entered into the collaborative work management space. So all those 3 products are part of what we offer as part of our team. And if we think about our team, the product management team has an inbound team. I would say they more or less do. If you ask someone to describe what product management does, it would be what the inbound team does. They own the roadmap. They study the market, figure out what features we need. They talk to customers, figure out what features they need. The outbound team that I run is about 10 people, and we are, as it kind of suggests, outward from the organization. the first kind of team that we hit is our sales organization. So we train and enable our sales organization on what these products are meant to do. We teach them about the domain space because the salespeople necessarily didn't come from a project portfolio management background. So we do a lot of enablement with the sales team. We also work a lot with the partner organizations. We did an enablement event a few months ago on moving into the EA space. We had like 1,600 partners that signed up for that. So we organize events like that. And then we also work with the industry analysts, the Forresters, the Gartners, the IDCs of the world as they, analyze our products and how they compare in the market.
Okay, so you also look after that sort of training around SPM, that space as well, going out to sales teams. Are you involved in putting together the training material that goes out towards the clients and your end users?
Not directly. So we work very closely with that team, but ServiceNow is a dedicated team that does our formal training, the material that's used for certification for customers and partners. So my team doesn't create that material, but we work very closely with them. Someone who's on my team came from that organization, so we have a great relationship with them, but not the exact same team, but closely related.
I see. So what sort of customer is a good fit for SPM?
Yeah, the good thing for us is there almost isn't a customer that's not a good fit for SPM. Doing strategic portfolio management, there's no specific industry that it suits better. There also, when you look at like size of organization, it makes sense that very large organizations need to coordinate, really align on what is our technical roadmap that aligns to our strategy. It suits very large organizations well, but what we also find is even small organizations tend to go all in, let's say, with ServiceNow, and those executives all meet on a regular basis. So for them, they love it too. So we see good usage in small companies, large companies. Really, if you looked at it, it's actually interesting. Like we do these graphs of customers by industry, and it's almost like perfectly divided on how ServiceNow views these industries. So it makes it interesting for us. We get to talk to all different types of clients.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
What sort of step in is there for an organization? So if they're going from today, maybe doing stuff in Excel spreadsheets,
Yeah.
they're going to adopt SPM. I guess a couple of questions. One, is it a product that you see that people are purchasing first, or are you still seeing them getting ITSM first or HR first and then coming to SPM? And then once they choose SPM, what's the step up or step in like for them?
Yeah, so those are two good questions. Like, when do they purchase ServiceNow in their life cycle, and then how do they deploy it? So I would say more and more customers are buying SPM earlier in their kind of ServiceNow journey. And in fact, with us moving into the EA space, our own internal enterprise architect teams, they were like, every ServiceNow customer should start with enterprise architecture, because it's the work that we do with customers to actually define their roadmap. So if we think about enterprise architecture and SPM, there's solutions that can be used very, very early in the customer journey. And in fact, if your audience is familiar with our impact team, which is a team that's really there to help design roadmaps for customers, in 2025, they're going to be moving what they do out of a centralized instance that we have into the customer's instance, and they're going to be leveraging pieces of SPM to do that. So customers will actually be using SPM to design their roadmaps of ServiceNow, which is great for us. I think it's great for customers. Now, the reality is most customers do start with ITSM. Customer service management is kind of where ServiceNow tends to land. We do have customers that have started with SPM, but as we say, like, I don't need to be the tip of the spear for ServiceNow. I don't need them to land with my product. But more and more, we do see SPM being part of that first purchase where they're kind of buying for ITSM, but see the value of SPM. That happens way more than it did even 2 years ago, which is great. And then as far as where customers start, that's evolved a lot as well. I think traditionally, It would be a very early deep dive into project management, big rollout, many users, change management. And what I've seen more and more, and what I advise clients, is start from the top down. I'll use your audience in North America more than in Australia and New Zealand will appreciate the National Hockey League is one of our customers. And that's how they started top down. The CEO wanted to know, like, hey, what are we working on? What have we invested in? I want to see how that's aligned to our strategy. And I want to know how that work is progressing. And they can do all that from our strategic planning workspace, basically our road mapping solution. And that exports directly to PowerPoint. So every week the CIO gets this PowerPoint of the roadmap with status, green, yellow, red for all the projects, percent complete. And I think there's a couple advantages of starting that way. One is you get very quick time to value, which everyone's looking for today. Like when I came into this business, you'd go to a bank, they'd hand you their big binder, like, here's our project management processes. You'd go away for a year and you'd come back and like, here's the solution with all the training material. People don't deploy software like that anymore. So I think being able to show some value really quickly is great. It also gets good alignment with executives and buying for executives. I think if you go to employees, project managers, and others, and you're like, this is really important, we have to do all of our work in here, but they don't see that, like, executives are looking at it, there's less incentive for them, less meaning in it. Whereas if it starts the other way around, it's like, hey, we've started with some very simple data points, start date, end date, status, and they see like this is getting looked at every week by everyone across the organization. Then when it comes time for them to come in, then they're like, yeah, this is important. This is getting, they want to be in there. So yeah, we see that kind of top down approach, start with something simple but meaningful, is really successful.
Yeah, that's interesting and makes a lot of sense. Getting in with the senior stakeholders right from the start, letting them drive what they want to see, and then helping that drive down through the business. It does remind me of when I was working in the partner space with clients. Often people would ask, what should we do here? Where should we start with whatever product it might be? And often one of the easiest things to help them get started was say, well, what reports do you want to get out of this? Who will be looking at some reports? Would like a report? And then you just start there, and that sort of defines, well, I need this data to fill that report. Well, how do I get that data, and what workflow does that come from? So yeah, similar kind of idea, I guess. In terms of a client who's picking up SPM, starting to work with it, are they finding it relatively easy? Are you needing to handhold them a lot to get them started?
I think it's one thing that we think about a lot. ServiceNow, when I came here, I was impressed, surprised by how much pride there was in, like, because this is a SaaS environment. Like when I first came into software, you bought a perpetual license, you spent almost all the money up front, and then your success with that was maybe less important to the software vendor because you had already paid them most of the money. And ServiceNow, kind of being born in the cloud as a SaaS only company, there was so much pride here on like the renewal rate, how many people just kept on using software and bought more software and had success. So the company is very focused on customer success. We just did a reorganization in the middle of this year, brought in even more executives to help customers be successful. And I think from the SPM side, there is more that we can do there. Customers, they are successful. We have, great customers coming to our annual customer event in Las Vegas, Knowledge, telling great stories. But I would like to make it easier for them. It's always this, and you can build things into the product that do that, of course, but it's always the struggle of like new features or features that help customers adopt. And we try and do both of those, but sometimes we tend to lead because even our existing customers, they're like, we need more features. But it is a big thing for our customers. We do invest a lot, like customers who have already bought, they want to get on the phone with me. I'm happy to get on the phone with them. I was talking to a customer this week. They have like this huge enterprise agreement with ServiceNow. They basically own everything. I want to talk to them. I want them to be successful. So I think we always think about how we can do more there. But I think we do have a great partner community. I'm thankful for that, who does generally a really good job of helping clients be successful.
I think part of the challenge of ServiceNow, it's that ServiceNow is such a broad product. There is so much functionality. I was looking through some of the FSM training a while ago, and man, there's days of training to get through that
Yeah,
stuff. So much
yeah,
functionality and really good stuff, and that's across the whole platform.
yeah,
That for me, that's one of the challenges I imagine that you would have is a client gets the product and you're wanting them to get all the value out of it that they can. It's going to take
yeah.
some time to actually show them what's there.
Yeah, I think it's funny, like as we were chatting earlier and you were talking about like building a community around ServiceNow, which I think is a wonderful thing. When I came into the product management world, I didn't get there when I first came to ServiceNow. I was on the sales side. But coming into product, I'm like, how do our customers even know what this, like the true breadth of what SPM and EA do? So one of the things that I started a few years ago was a twice a year event for customers, virtual, so anyone from around the world could participate. It's 2 hours long. And I'm like, what are the main things that someone wants to see? Something that they would see if they came to Knowledge to our customer event. So they're going to see a customer presentation, someone like, what are other customers doing? It's always something they're interested in. So we have one customer kind of present their SPM journey. We have my counterpart, Karina Hatfield, presents the roadmap of the product, so where we're going kind of in the next 18 months, so they can kind of plan what they might want to roll out in that period. And then we have generally like some kind of panel talking about maybe adopting the product or what does good portfolio management look like, or some kind of panel that's interesting. We do that in 2 hours. We do it in September. We do it in March and September, and that's really well attended. We get over 1,000 people for the SPM one, and close to that for the enterprise architecture one. So I think, yeah, it's great for customers to be able to see, and that comes back to your point about like how do they know what the product even does. So we do take that time to share things, because I think sometimes there might be like 5 or 6 times where the customer's seen a product demonstration from us. There's always something new that they catch, something new that they see that they didn't know we did. Even myself, sometimes I see things, and I try and keep up. Like with every release, I look at the platform release, what the platform team has built. It's difficult to keep up for sure, in an exciting way.
It's enormous. A little bit of background. I spent the last 5 or 6 years working with teams of people, usually remote teams, supporting clients with ServiceNow. And whenever a new upgrade comes up, like all of our senior devs would just be going, "How am I going to find the time to read these release notes? There's thousands of pages. There's so much that comes out."
Yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned there, and I understand there'll be things that you can't talk about, but what is in SPM, what's coming, what are you excited about, maybe what's happening in the AI space, that sort of thing?
We couldn't get through this without talking about Gen AI. So it's a big, the company is, for those that have read anything about ServiceNow, like what Bill McDermott, our CEO, is talking about, he's definitely betting big on generative AI to help our customers across their business transformation, and that obviously becomes the focus from all the products within the company. So we are almost everything. Like if you think about any hiring that we're doing next year, 95% of that is in generative AI space, people to support for Gen AI. So there's definitely a big focus. If we think about strategic portfolio management kind of end to end, we try and simplify it by saying it's like setting strategy and targets, doing the alignment, determining all the work that you could do, what is the work that's going to deliver those best outcomes aligned with the strategy, and then delivering that work. And if we think about that life cycle, we think about Gen AI. Right now there's basic use cases, I would say, but in the not too distant future, we're really going to impact that end-to-end process from a generative AI perspective, to where we think about a good example might be a product owner, someone who owns, let's say you're the owner of your, you work at a bank and you own the mobile banking app. As a product owner, you might start your day reading feedback from customers. You might go into ServiceNow and look at some customer cases that are there. You could spend the first half of your day just trying to figure out like, hey, what are the things that we should be focusing on to do something better for customers? Well, in the not too distant future where agentic AI, while that product owner is asleep, is going to be going out and reading those customer cases. It's going to be looking at operational data. It's going to be summarizing that customer feedback, and the product owner will come in the morning and there'll be a suggestion of 20 epics already prioritized from generic AI for that person to put their human lens on it, because ServiceNow is very clear that like humans have to be at the center, but so much is going to happen to make their lives a lot easier for them to focus on the value add. And I think, and then once that product owner goes through that list and says, well, these 3 epics I want to focus on, then agentic AI can go out and create stories and, build templates for work. And so much can happen from AI. I think it is going to change our world at least from the SPM part, in a good way. People are going to be they're going to be using their minds to do the value add piece, and a lot of the manual, semi-manual, white collar knowledge worker stuff is going to go away.
Yeah, look, I was trying to think of some questions to ask before we met, and one of the things that my mind went to was around when I worked as a project manager in the past. I would find the most useful thing for me was each week our PMO manager would take the time to sit down and take 15 minutes with each of us and go, okay, what have you got on? Open it up, show me the plan, how are we tracking, how's the burn, have we talked to the customer, we're communicating, and those little reminders and things like that just kept your hygiene there. And that's where I'm imagining that something like SPM could see the AI in the ServiceNow platform evolve from today, where I would suggest almost in all areas with AI today, it's very reactive. I ask a question, I get a great response to that proactive service where it's like I've got an inbuilt helper in ServiceNow. It's my PMO manager who's there with me, asking me questions. Have you done this, suggesting that kind of thing? I think would be great to see.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're excited about, like in this month's release, in the November release, we released a Gen AI feature called Project Email. And it's a weekly email to the project manager, and you just describe what's in that. Be like, hey, you had this high risk that's past the due date. You've had this resource request that's been out there for 4 weeks, hasn't been filled. And all this information is summarized in an email and sent to the project manager. So the customers that we've shown that to, like prior to the release, very, very excited about that. I think it's really interesting where we're going with this.
That sort of thing, being able to sit down and talk to your project and say, look, my lead developer's he's sick, or he's got to go back home for a month. Can you just rewrite this plan for me? Give me a couple of options. Or the client says, hey, we want all this new functionality, X, Y, and Z, but we've still got to hit that date. Oh, shit, how do I make this work? If that could just say, well, and you could pull some levers. Oh, I want to optimize for my internal costs here, or I've got a whole heap of junior developer time, let's use them. Wow, that sort of thing is amazing. Cool.
And it's not that far off. Like I said, the email is available in GA today, and I think next year there's going to be some really cool features as part of this kind of end-to-end process that we're trying to help customers execute on.
Cool. Look, Doug, hey, thank you very, very much. It's really interesting chat. It's been nice having a chat. If you're interested in the future at some stage, you want to come back on, it'd be great to have you back on the show again.
Yeah, I love the idea. I appreciate you helping to build the ServiceNow community. It's been great talking to you, Tim, and I'd love to come back sometime.